guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video is a little sculpting project. If you've been following me on places like Blue Sky or even on my Patreon, you'll know I recently became a Kindle girly. I have been reading up a storm this year, and of course with a new little device, I wanted to decorate mine. Though I picked up an old model, which is the Kindle Touch 4, and it's so old that you can't even buy a dedicated case for it, which is a little bit of a bummer. When I searched for others with the same model, all the advice was sort of the same, just get a universal e-reader case, but I have yet to find a cute one that I love. I'm still on the hunt, but in the meantime, I thought adding a little charm would be a fun personal touch. And I also thought it would be great practice as someone who's been trying to create like a clay practice. Now, in regards to the Kindle, I know you might be wondering why I got such an old Kindle, especially when the matcha Kindle is so my style. But here's the thing. I wasn't really sure if I'd enjoy reading. I, like many other American teenagers, was forced to read books that I was not extremely interested in, now of which are highly interesting to me in this socio-political climate. But anyway, I wasn't sure if I'd enjoy reading. And also, e-readers are weirdly expensive. So I grabbed a used one on eBay, and this thing has been attached to my hip ever since. It's been about a month, and I've actually already read 6 books. Well, one of them I did listen to, but I kind of still count that as reading because I took notes. But anyway, that is kind of wild. I didn't expect to read that much, but it turns out I love reading, which shouldn't have surprised me as much as it did. I used to read a lot as a kid before the essays and the annotations and all of the things you would do in an English class. And honestly, for me, e-readers do scratch the same itch as doom scrolling, but without the doom. Instead of spiraling about the state of the world, I'm flipping pages and I'm pretty immersed in whatever story I'm reading. Now, as for what I've actually been sculpting this whole time, it's a little bear. This character comes from a world I've been developing on the side. My main project has been feeling a bit daunting and all-consuming, so I started a project B, something with a little less pressure, and this bear is from that world. After my latest patron reward, something really clicked for me, and I realized that sculpting wasn't just something that I could put off until I magically got better. It was a necessary next step for my art practice, which is also a little bit crazy because I remember at one point I even told my partner that I would never sculpt because I was just bad at working with my hands and I didn't enjoy it. But I think the curiosity eventually just grew over the years. A couple years back, I made an art toy called Sad Serve. I did a whole Kickstarter and I directed and animated a short film about him. And I largely reflect on that project as a big turning point in my art practice. I was bored with making two-dimensional work. Doing character design turnarounds became very boring for me. And so it was sort of a next level. And I think I've put that on pause for quite a bit. Sometimes the urge to try something new is so undeniable. Like, I think it's called the hero's journey. And not to center myself as like some super cool hero, I just think it's a great example. The hero of a story might resist the call to adventure initially, but then the call becomes so great and so personal that it is almost impossible to resist. And that's actually how I felt about my last patron reward. I just didn't feel like the idea that I wanted to express was fully conveyed. And not because it wasn't a successful illustration, but I think for me, that illustration alone can't be my only or even like my truest outlet. I want to create something that pulls people in, that feels alive, and making my art more tangible is the next step for me. I want my work to capture the joyfulness of life, its simplicity, the magic in everything, the comfort of being a homebody. And illustrating these moments has been really fun, and I'll continue to do so because I still enjoy drawing, but I'm ready to take it further. I think 3D is immersive, and I want to bring that same sense of depth and presence into my art. And honestly, I'm having fun with it. I think this little guy adds just the right amount of whimsy to my Kindle, and I really love how it's turned out. This is so cute! I love how this turned out. I am looking forward to decorating my space with more of these little guys, and maybe decorating yours too. I'd love to get to a point where I am selling these, but for now it's a bit of a TBC. To be continued. Anyway, I can't talk about reading without sharing what I've been reading lately and some of my recommendations. I've got one nonfiction book and a fiction book you might love. Recently, I read Creative Demons and How to Slay Them by Richard Holman. The number of highlights I have in this book is kind of ridiculous. It really puts so many of my creative blocks into words in a way that I haven't quite seen before. Of course, there are tons of videos about art block, but none that break down those feelings as succinctly as this book. I really love the personification of each kind of pesky thought you may experience. For me, it even makes it a little bit less daunting to see them as like little demons on your shoulder. Most of all, it's a pretty easy read, and it's also a very quick read. I finished it in a couple days, but to be fair, I am a pretty ferocious reader, so your reading time may vary, but highly recommend. That book I read on my Kindle, so I don't actually have a physical copy to show you, but as for my fiction pick, I do have a physical copy. My fiction pick for you guys is A Psalm for the Wild Built. This book really pulled me back into reading, and it was such a wonderful way to return. It is so vivid and so immersive. To give you a little bit of a summary, this book is about a wandering tea monk who is searching for their purpose. They come in contact with a robot, which in this universe is considered a long lost kind of thing. Robots are not commonplace in the society, but according to the legends, they used to be. This tea monk comes in contact with a robot who is seeking the answer to what seems like a really simple question, but is actually super complex. What do people need? I really loved this book. It is a little bit existential, I will say, but I love existentialism. But the world is hopeful. The characters really feel like a warm hug, and every time I opened it, I really did feel like I was stepping into this rich, lush world. I highly recommend it. I am itching to read the sequel, in fact, and in hindsight, I kind of wish I had bought Monk and Robot, which I think is the compilation of both stories. But yeah, this is a great read. And I have an honorable mention, The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. This book is actually what convinced me to get a Kindle. This book I bought 3 years ago, and I read a quarter way into it and then put it down because at the time it was a little bit more difficult for me to read, and it probably even coincided with me getting TikTok, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I told myself if I finished this book, then I would award myself with a Kindle, and I ended up reading this book in a couple days. It wasn't that bad. It's not a particularly long book. I really enjoy the writing style of Brene Brown. She is honestly one of my favorite authors. I don't read physical books a lot, but I have listened to Brene's TED Talks, and I have an audiobook from her. Her research on shame and resilience is really fascinating to me and very insightful, and those are the types of things that she talks about in this book. And she writes in such such a relatable and comforting way. I have so many quotes from this book. If you want an even deeper dive into shame, I highly recommend another book by her called The Power of Vulnerability, which I'm overdue for a reread for. Such a good book. And great compassionate reminders of self-kindness, how to prevent and soothe shame spirals. It's just really good. Just check it out. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Happy reading, maybe, if you also read. Actually, if you read and have any recommendations, please leave them down in the description below. I am looking for my next book. I really enjoy cozy fiction and neuroscience, it seems like. I would say I'm mostly open to anything except things that are considered spicy or overly romantic. And I'm not huge into like violence, like graphic violence, if you know what I mean. But yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys!